What's going on, everyone? This is Timothy, your host of A Time in Refinement. This is episode 2. I wanted to talk to you guys about insecurity tonight because I've struggled with that a lot growing up. And I think it's important because social media is such a damaging thing to our society, I believe. There's a lot of good things that come with it, but at the same time, we tend to idolize it and also internalize it. And in turn, it makes us unhappy and depressed and anxious people a lot of the time, myself included. So I grew up homeschooled, Christian conservative. Thankful that I had both my parents around until they divorced a few years ago. So I'm thankful that I had a pretty stable family growing up. And I based my self worth on my school and my work. I started working pretty early. I did some handyman jobs here and there when I was like, I don't know, 12, 13, 14. And then I went to the workforce about 15 and just continued to work until then, like crazy. Up until now, I have my business now. But I base my self worth and my self image on what I achieved and only what I achieved. So if I underachieved, I was a terrible person and I needed to do better. And there was no room for excuses, which is interesting because that's still how I live now. I definitely base my self worth on my work and what I look like and the gym and my bills, etc. And so growing up with that was interesting because I was a pretty straight laced kid. I didn't do anything, no drinking, no smoking, no sex, nothing like that. And I'm thankful for it because I do think it made me the man that I am now. Absolutely. But it was a fear tactic, and we can argue whether fear tactics are good or bad in, I guess, in that purity culture era. But it definitely came over from my younger life to my adult life, and I'm just learning to enjoy my own company and read and be in solitude and meditate for the first time, like in my life. Maybe the past couple, not even couple of years, like the past year and a half, year and a half. And it's crazy. It's crazy how much different it is to actually take care of myself versus making sure everybody else is taken care of. This kind of coincides with self-image and insecurities. But everything I did was goal oriented, which I still am, very goal oriented. But it was always making sure you're working towards that house, being debt free, having that wife, having the kids, having the car, kind of that traditional American dream lifestyle. And I have no problem with that. Like, I still work towards that, but in a different way now. I don't base as much as of my self image and my self onto that like I used to. And I was a pretty unhappy kid growing up. I mean, I was definitely, I guess, easygoing, but I always knew there was more and more and more. And I was always upset when I didn't win my basketball game. I was very competitive. I still am pretty competitive, but not as much as I used to be. Very competitive in sports and in my music and in my theater and all of those things. Like I was always making sure that I was the best in my mind. And even in other people, like I was always, oh, I'll make sure I'm better than this person. But really in my mind, it was making sure I was the best in my mind where I could be. And that's that whole, I guess, winner mindset, that big thing, the grind set, we call it. And I think it's important. To a degree, because once we take that and internalize it, the darkness starts to come in, the mental health issues start to come in, your feelings of inadequacy, insecurity, not worthy, not good enough, not even knowing what love is, because love is unconditional. I mean, we can get on the scripture with that, but love is unconditional. Love is not meant to be conditional. It's not meant to be, I will love you if you do this for me. Love is, I love you how you are. Now, that doesn't mean getting into a relationship, you just love that person just for who they are. It is, but if there's something going on that you don't necessarily agree with, love is also having a conversation and being like, hey, maybe we could talk about this. So, anyway, kind of getting off track, but um, yeah, love is unconditional. And a lot of kids, I don't think, get that unconditional love from their parents. It's unfair to throw all parents in this stereotype because we're all human. We're all trying to figure life out. We're doing the best that we can do. And so, kids that have just that conditional love of, as long as you get good grades, I'll make you a good dinner, or as long as you are working, I will pay your bills. I guess being a parent is going to be a little bit different, but in the same unconditional love regard, we can't couple love and achievement together, because I think there needs to be different conversations for both. And in culture now, in society, we seem to take that to the extreme of, the girl has to look exactly like this, her body's got to be perfect, her hair's got to be perfect, she's got to act like this, she's got to do this in order for us to love her. And sure, we're, as men, we're uh, physical creatures. We're very visual, and so that's obviously going to perk up on our radar, but that's never going to be the biggest thing. And so insecurities in the men are, we don't feel like we're worthy of love, or we're worthy of a relationship, or we're worthy of happiness or contentment unless we provide X, Y, and Z, meaning paying the bills, taking the wife out, taking the girlfriend out, having that nice car, having that nice lifestyle. Sure, all those things are great, but again, we're talking about very, very, very small majority of men. And I know for a fact, and I'll get on this, I'm sure I'll have a bunch of episodes on men's mental health, because I know a lot of guys, so many guys that feel inadequate because they don't make enough money, or they feel inadequate because they're a little awkward, or they feel awkward because maybe they said something wrong, or they carry themselves a certain way. And I believe everybody's worthy of unconditional love. Crazy, I know, is a crazy statement, but it's true, and that goes for men and women. And we seem to put ourselves in situations of where we feel we're most content, or most happy, or most comfortable. That's a good word. Comfortable in that situation, because I have a good friend of mine that just got screwed over by a lot of gals that were just insecure, and they just, maybe they weren't necessarily happy with themselves, or knowing really what they're looking for. I'm not going to dog on either sex. It's not my objective. But when he met his wife and she actually treated him well and did things for him, he was like, whoa, what the heck? This is weird. He's like, I'm not used to this. So he said it took him a lot of time and effort to actually accept that, because he wasn't used to that. So I guess that just kind of goes back to insecurities, and really having to be comfortable with yourself before you can give that to somebody else. The old adage of putting your oxygen mask on before you help someone else put theirs on is very true, because I'll probably have to make another episode on this because I'm running out of time. But you have to love yourself before you love somebody else. And we get into relationships and friendships and just not wanting to be alone with people because we're scared and we're lonely of being with ourselves. And I think that's a huge thing now. And it's sad because I've been there, and I still struggle with that because I'm such a people pleaser and a people person that I can't get it in my head that, hey, you have to be comfortable with yourself and in your own skin before you can be with somebody. Otherwise, you're going to be full on codependent. And I don't want to be codependent. I don't want to be codependent on somebody. Loving somebody is very different than codependency, in my opinion, because I don't want to be with somebody that I just want to be with because I'm lonely. And I think a lot of us fall short in that regard. I know I do. I know I've done it before with some gals that I've dated, is just using them for a crutch so I didn't feel lonely because I didn't want to be by myself. And so to wrap this episode up, I just want to encourage you guys to, just sit with yourself. Just maybe if it's just a minute